What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast. It was brought to my attention that I butchered this last week. The Unreasonable Odds podcast, my podcast, presented by DraftKings. It's a special Monday edition. The national title game is here. We got the game we've been waiting for all year. It was taken away from us due to COVID in December. Baylor and Gonzaga meet in the national title game, and for the occasion, we are bringing in a special guest. Kelly Stewart, you can find her on Twitter at Kelly in Vegas. You can find her work all over the place. Bleacher Report betting, Wager Talk, the Kelly and Murray podcast, the Kelly in Vegas proxy service. She's doing pretty much everything out in Vegas. I probably forgot a bunch of stuff there. Kelly, thank you for joining the Unreasonable Odds podcast.
I love it. When you said, I hope I don't butcher my own podcast. We've all been there. It's Monday morning. National championship on the brain. You got this.
We did change the name in December in my own right, and I didn't get anything wrong. I apparently have just been leaving some words out in past weeks, but I got it right today.
I love it.
So you and I were just talking before we came on. I'm thrilled to have this matchup. I'm excited to see it. But the betting edges at this point on this game in particular, maybe not necessarily there. When we were going to get this game in December, I think I had Zags -2 somehow in that game before the ticket got voided. It went to around 2.5, 3. Now we had the look ahead line on Saturday sitting at 6. Baylor comes out, crushes Houston. Gonzaga looks human versus UCLA. Now it goes to 4.5. So the value, I guess, at this point, I don't think anybody can disagree, is on Gonzaga, but it's a big stage. They're undefeated. There's a lot of pressure on them. Where is your head at in terms of people wanting to bet this spread?
There's a ton of narratives here, right? You nailed it. You set it up. Baylor looked so good against Houston. As somebody who had a Houston +5 ticket, I shut it off 5 minutes into the game. I knew exactly what was going to happen. Baylor shot lights out in that first half. And as you mentioned on the flip side, you have the Zags who have just beaten the bookmakers up week in, week out. First half game, UCLA got the best of them. UCLA played their best game. I'm not saying the Zags didn't play a good game, but I don't think the Zags felt like it was a look-ahead spot necessarily, but they played like it, right? They already had their eyes on the national title game. And when you have UCLA, who is more known as, I would say, a tempo team, someone who plays shutdown defense, be able to go toe-to-toe with you offensively, I think they took the Zags kind of off their game plan. Now, can Baylor do that? Absolutely. Do I think Baylor's going to do that? No. You mentioned 6 being the look-ahead line. 6 is what I made the game. I want to bet the Zags here so bad. I really do. But this Baylor Bears team has shown me so many times why you don't want to bet against them. I took Villanova against them, and in the first half, Nova looked great, and Baylor was able to overcome. This is going to be such a good game, in my opinion. I don't think I want to bet this side. I'm looking at the total, and I already hate myself. Point blank, period, the end. I took the under. Who wants the under in the national championship game? Who wants to root for defense? This girl right here, under 159.5. I locked it in this morning. I am a little late to the party, but I do think that this one is a little bit too high.
I mean, this is certainly a stage where it could tighten up. And these are two very good teams that it's interesting. Like we almost saw this game earlier in the year, and that would give us just kind of a look into what this might be like, even though the stage is different, even though it's a few months later. And I think it just makes betting the game so much more interesting that, like, literally 2 hours before that game, it was ripped away from us. And like you said, it sounds ridiculous to say, was Gonzaga in a look ahead spot in a primetime Saturday night Final Four game? Who looks past that? But when you have an 11 seed in front of you and you're undefeated and you're one of the best college teams of all time, and you know Baylor's already blown Houston out and they're sitting there, maybe it was just that.
It's tough. And, you know, I am of the school of thought that coaches know the spread. Kids know the spread. We see it get referenced all the time now with the internet, with all of these different betting sites, with college kids are now immersed in it. So imagine being Gonzaga and being like, ha, we're 14.5-point favorites in this game. Or they know, again, you mentioned the seeding just in that alone. I think that was probably part of UCLA's mention. We know that the Arkansas head coach mentioned the spread as well. He goes, I know we're pretty big underdogs in this game. It's kind of nice to hear those things because those are things I've been preaching about for years. So yeah, I don't want to say Gonzaga was necessarily looking ahead, but they sure played like it. And that's not me taking away any credit from UCLA. I thought they looked great. I was cheering hard for them to get the win, even though I did not have the guts to even put a single cent on the money line.
You got the points, so you cashed that. Here's the thing with Gonzaga. There's a level in which I agree with you and a level in which I have a little bit of concern. Like they were playing maybe a little too looking past or whatever. I don't even know the word. They looked past UCLA, but UCLA hit like all their shots. They shot lights out. I completely underestimated how hot they were in this tournament. I said that they were getting lucky. You have teams like Alabama, Michigan, both that shoot above 70% from the free throw line. They combined to shoot less than 50% from the line in those wins. I thought it was coming to an abrupt end against Gonzaga for them, and they just knocked down all their shots. Now, there's individual plays that I see in that game that do concern me a little bit about Gonzaga's defense. Like late in that game, Juzang hit a 3 to put, I think, UCLA up by 2, where Suggs was on him. He went down, he doubled the post and left Juzang to do that, like wide open for 3. If those are the types of decisions or mistakes that the Zags are going to make defensively against Baylor, Butler, Mitchell, Teague are probably going to make those shots in those situations. I'm really like, I used to do some NBA coverage, some NBA draft coverage. I'm like obsessed with Davion Mitchell right now. I think that he's going to be a fantastic NBA player. He's so well-rounded. He has no problem getting down and dirty on defense. He hits the big shots. The ball is always in his hands, finding the right guys. I just think that the Baylor offense is going to get some looks in this game to make it close. So I'm rambling right now. I guess my question is, if there's something that scares you about Baylor, what is it? What do you think that matchup is on the floor that you think they would maybe have an advantage with?
That's a really interesting question. See, I know this sounds weird, but I look at the math behind things. Like the X's and O stuff is what I really enjoy working with other people on. I can't say that, Teague is going to match up really well against, Suggs, or that he is going to have a great game because Suggs is not going to, right? Like that's where I have to say, okay, look, I can look at from the statistical standpoint and say, okay, look, height-wise, yes, Gonzaga has a little bit of height advantage, but Baylor has 2 big men, those type of things. But from like how the X's and O's and how the game itself is going to break down is not something that's ever been my forte.
Fair enough. I was going to quickly mention the player prop market. Maybe you don't have anything there given where you're at. I'll say on Saturday night, I just did a couple of smaller plays, wrote them up in my article for fun. Got a little lucky on Drew Timme points. It was at 19.5. He was at 19 at the end of regulation, got it on the first play in overtime. Sometimes you need luck. And then there's Davion Mitchell, who I'm not often this right about things, so I'll take a little victory lap on it. Mitchell over 4.5 assists. He had like 4 at the first media timeout. He had a tournament school record, 11 assists in that one. He's somebody, so the assist number went from 4.5, now jumped up to 6.5. Can't back it at that. The under's minus 150 something last I looked. Even though I lean to, I like Gonzaga in this game and the number's too short. I think that Davion Mitchell points, rebounds, assists at 22.5. I think he's the engine that makes that team go. He has to be involved in a big way and have his fingerprints all over this game. So if there's a prop that I'm going to go to, I think that that's it. Do you dabble at all? Even this is almost like the Super Bowl of college basketball. So do you have any fun, I guess, once we get to this stage, dabble in the props?
You're right. This is the Super Bowl of college basketball. And I'm going to tell you this about the prop market. I think the bookmakers do such a kick-ass job in the prop market that I rarely get involved. When I do get involved, I look for those overvalued players. You brought up the Super Bowl, someone like Cheetah, right? I bet Tyreek Hill under receiving yards because I knew that he was juiced too high. So my advice to your listeners is in regards to the player prop market tonight is to look for those underlying names, right? The guys that are either coming off the bench, the guys that are not going to maybe get a ton of looks, because those guys are getting minuscule minutes of the bookmakers' time, right? The big names, the Drew Timmies of the world, the Jalen Suggs of the world, those guys, the bookmakers have honed in on those numbers and the margins are razor thin. As you mentioned last game with the assist, now the bookmaker said, all right, fine, you had 11 assists last game. We're going to make you pay a premium to bet his assist market. So either people stay away or they're laying a bad number. So be kind of cognizant of that when doing it. And I haven't bet anything in the prop market just yet. As I mentioned, I don't love this game from a betting perspective. I love this game from a sports fan perspective, and I'm excited to watch. But there isn't a ton of value anywhere you look. I'm going to have a bet on it. As I mentioned, I'm going to play the under, which is the most terrible thing to do in a national championship game, as I've already been told this week. But it makes the most sense. That's where I think that there is a little bit of value. And I do think there is a little bit with the Zags. I think a lot of people are rushing to back Zags money line, and I'm not of that mantra, just not for me to lay that kind of juice in a really tight contested game. Look, Zags could pull away at the end and beat Baylor by 6, and I may be kicking myself, but I just don't think that this is a game worth sweating. There are, 10 baseball games today. There's a ton of NBA slates. I can find better ways to use my money. So keep in mind, this is the Super Bowl of sorts, but just as I preach to people in the Super Bowl, you still need to practice bankroll management, even though it's the last game of the year.
That you do. Just looking at the players real quick, somebody that maybe fits your mold, and I'm not saying this is something you should go and bet, but Matthew Mayer on Baylor. I know his points prop throughout the tournament has been set around 7.5. He had a pretty good game against Houston. He comes off the bench. He's gone up 2 points for this game and is now set at 9.5. So
that's interesting.
That's an example of maybe somebody that's a little bit too juiced up in this spot.
Yeah, 6.3 points per game. It's funny when you said his name, I automatically think the mullet. I don't even think of his name. And so
I feel like I learned his name recently, and I've been watching him play all year. And all you think about.
I definitely think he is juice. I'm looking at total 8.3 points per season. They're expecting him to get, Ken Palm's expecting him to get 6.3 in this game. That is interesting. The bookmakers have juiced it up. He did play really well against Houston. From the few moments of the game that I did watch before I turned it off and said, okay, no more. I'm kind of a sore loser like that. I'd rather just turn it off and do something else. Look forward to the next game. It's better than stressing myself out when my +5 ticket is going up in flames.
Okay, let's talk. I guess you mentioned that you're not somebody that hedges, but let's talk the futures market for a minute, because these are the two best teams. So I think a lot of people are coming into this game with a Gonzaga to win it all, a Baylor to win it all ticket, because those were popular teams to bet to win it all. And here they are meeting as we all kind of hoped that they would. So I told you back in November, I have a Zags +1,000 ticket. I think that people along the way have been betting the Zags even at +250, 300. We've seen them at kind of late in the season. Baylor pretty recently was sitting around +500 to win it all. What is your strategy, I guess, coming into this game? If pretend you're me, you're holding a Zags +1,000, or you're somebody that's on Baylor. Where's your head at in terms of how you want to make it out of this game?
So when you're hedging, the reason why you want to hedge is because you want to lock yourself in a profit, right? Or maybe you've overextended yourself. That's something I haven't ever done. So typically, whenever I've considered hedging, it's because I have a 3-team money line parlay and I have that third leg, to pay $5,500, and I could put 1,000 now on the other side, guarantee myself a $2,500 profit, right? Something of that sort of nature. So because you have a Zags +1,000 ticket, it's so much more valuable in my eyes than someone who bet the Zags 3 weeks ago at even money.
Right.
I would probably consider shopping around for the best money line on Baylor. Now, I had a buddy last night, just to give you an example, he had the Nuggets on the money line. Yes, -1,800 in a big parlay. It was the last of it, and I was just cringing. And I go, I'm going to take the Magic +17. At this point in time, this is way too many points. The line's moved 5 points, right? This is dumb. I'm taking it. I don't care what happens. This is a plus EV play in my eyes. Sure enough, Magic lose by 10. But my advice to him was before that, you can either bet the Magic on the money line, which I don't think that the Nuggets are going to lose. So I probably wouldn't do that. Or you could take them plus 17 for a potential hedge. So if I'm you, try to find a 5. Let me look and see if there's still a 5 available. I doubt there is. If you could find a 5, there's a 5. Nope, there's not. I was going to say there's a 5 at DraftKings, but no, there's not. That's the wrong line.
You can make a 5 at DraftKings. You can make any number you want at DraftKings.
You can, but please be cautious when buying those half points, things of that nature. I will say this: 4, 5, and 6 are very popular half points to buy in college basketball. A lot of sharp groups have done that over the years. Just be cautious as to what the bookmakers are charging you to do that. Now, that's what I would do. I would take Baylor plus the points for, I would say, whatever amount of money you want to win, the minimum amount, because I don't know how much you have plus 1,100 for. Let's say you have $100 on it, right? So then I would put, me personally, 500 on Baylor plus 4.5, because you actually aren't hedging, you're middling. Right. If Baylor loses by 1, 2, 3, or 4, you win both tickets. And in my eyes, that makes the most sense from someone who doesn't hedge. Now, and that's because I don't ever feel like I've overextended myself, and I would be more mad at myself if I cashed the original ticket that I kind of wussed out and took a lower cash out amount.
So I'm with you. I could lose my Zags ticket, and I'm, like you said, I'm not overextended. I would not be hurting if that happened. I left it completely unhedged the whole way through the tournament, and was totally fine with that. Now, I didn't think I would have to sweat UCLA, and I very much did. But I'm with you. Like, I was talking with somebody earlier, and they're like, all right, you want to put whatever, like 3 units, 4 units on Baylor money line. And I was like, well, why not just go with the points here for whatever number you want to decide on? This is somebody that has a Gonzaga ticket as well. This is going to be a great game. I'm very confident that this is going to be a great game. And I think Gonzaga by 4 or less is a pretty reasonable outcome. So I'm totally with you. The ability to win both. I haven't decided if or quite how much I'm going to hedge, but if I do, it will definitely be Baylor with points versus Baylor money line, especially with the money line. Like, the money line at DraftKings right now is sitting at plus 163. Is that all that much different from laying the spreads minus 108 right now? Like, that's not that much of a difference to get a good chunk of points to middle with, right?
I actually don't think it is. I mean, we're talking, would you just say it's minus 108, minus 163?
Spreads minus 108. The money line is plus 163. If you wanted to go with the alternate, you can get Baylor plus 5 at minus 118 right now on DraftKings.
I'd have to break down the actual math on it, but yeah, we're talking in theory, 45 cents here. Nothing crazy to get 5 points. Think about 10 cents each point. That's about right. I think you could get the 5 at minus 118 and then also have your Gonzaga ticket. I think you could hit both and be in a really exciting position at the end of the game, celebrating cashings of 2 tickets instead of just 1, or, cashing 0 tickets because you're upset that you didn't hedge at all.
Exactly. That's what you have to, and everybody has kind of their own opinion on this. This is just to do what you feel you want to do. Depends how much money you have on it. It depends what number you have. But just think about at the end of the game, how would you feel if you came out of it with nothing versus how would you feel would you still be okay if, I came out of it with less money, but that was the right decision? That's what you have to base these decisions on.
Absolutely. I always think of the kid, I forget the movie, but he has the no regrets tattoo. Like, you want to make sure that you don't regret anything. I always use that GIF on Twitter. You want to make sure you don't regret it, not hedging or hedging at the end. And to me, hedging always seems to be more of a regret in the back of my mind. So I think you got to go with what feels right and how much money, I hate saying this, but the sharp guys will always say, guarantee yourself money, point blank, period, the end. And yep. I just don't live by that mantra, but it's why I don't do only that professionally. I have lots of other gigs that pay me money so that I cannot hedge my tickets.
Right. I mean, that's okay. I had to Google it. We're the Millers is the no regrets.
There we go.
Tattoo. I was close. Couldn't think of it. So I'll do one more, I guess, somewhat question about hedging before we get out of here. It's not even hedging, but if you're betting to make money, which I think a lot of us are, there are also entertainment bets, I guess, that you can factor in. I'm kind of just piecing this question together on the fly, but so if I'm betting to make money, that's great. I'm building my bankroll, etc. What do I want that bankroll for, that income for? To have fun, to spend in life on the things that you want to do. So if sometimes that having fun is whatever, on Saturday night, you want to take $50 and put it on UCLA money line because that's how you want to enjoy your Saturday night, you can go ahead and do that. I guess, what's your mentality on, because I know you've said you don't overextend yourself. You're building your bankroll. You're very strict about that. But what if you want to use a couple bucks to have fun? Is that part of the equation for you at all?
So it's interesting. So I tell people this all the time. I have had to learn by my own mistakes. That's the reason why I am the way I am. And I've had so many people ask me, Kelly, well, why are you so stringent? I'm like, I have been dead broke. I have spent way too much money, had been way too far extended because I was on a cold streak, because I was having degenerate tendencies, whatever those things are. So look, whatever you decide your parameters are for you, it's no different than if you're in the stock market. But that's how I treat my bankroll, is as if I'm in the stock market. I can't open up my coin. Let me rephrase that. I can open up my Coinbase app right now and cash out Bitcoin, right? But I'm not going to, because that's like a separate investment. So I treat my sports investment as such. I only reinvest it into other sports. Me personally, I don't take any of that to go do other things. Like, I had a buddy that won a whole bunch of money and he went and bought a new car. And guess what? He went on the worst 3-week cold streak of his life right afterwards. I'm like, why did you do that? We knew that was coming. So for me personally, no, I don't. But you're right. Everybody's kind of got their own little bankroll. And if you want to go out and have beers with your buddies and watch the game and you're like, hey guys, I just won $100, tabs on me, that's what you should use it for. And so everybody's kind of should have their own thing. Me personally, I don't. This is my sports allotment. This is where I'm at. And let's see where we can build this. And let me tell you, it is an absolute and utter roller coaster ride from football season until today. It always is. It's up and down and up and down. And I think that that's something you've got to be able to handle, is those ebbs and flows, or those spikes and crashes for some of us. And being able to withstand those means that you'll just live to bet another day.
Love the message there, because that is all very important. If you are overextending yourself too much, and you're just going to wind up not enjoying this. So,
then you'll be miserable. You're absolutely right, because I've been there.
Yes.
Because the Sunday, I had the best Friday, Saturday opening day of March Madness. Sunday, I was with some buddies, and I didn't love anything that day, but I was, breaking some of my own rules, betting some of the games they were betting so I could have action. And next thing you know, I had a terrible day. But luckily, it was just one of those roller coaster rides. It could have been catastrophic. And for some of the people in the group, it was, because, well, next thing you know, you're doubling, tripling down. You're betting, thousands of dollars on a game you maybe normally would have hundreds on. So I hate to be that like mama bear that's like, listen to me, but trust me, learn from all of my mistakes and you're going to be okay.
I know some of those buddies, I think, and Chris talked me into, he guaranteed Texas Tech over Arkansas. I was like, I don't have a feel for this game.
I'm going to be honest with you. I still don't know if I'm going to forgive Chris for Texas Tech. It has been, that was so frustrating. I liked Arkansas, and I actually, at one point in time, my boyfriend was sitting in front of me and he said something and he goes, I have Arkansas. And I was like, oh, then I was like really mad, because I wasn't going to bet the game. Then I let Chris talk me into it. And those are things that don't normally happen. But when you're in a sports book and beers are flowing, yeah, you nailed it. I'm going to actually text him right after this and be like, hey, remember the Texas Tech bet? Thanks, buddy.
You should remind him. I would say something to him, but I also talked him into a player prop that did not work out. So we're even. We just exchanged losing bets, and
there you go. Well, you did talk me into a player prop that I'm still actively looking for. Matt Mayer under points for tonight. I'm going to have to be searching high and low because we still don't have DraftKings in Nevada.
9.5. You'll find it somewhere. 3 points high, apparently. There was something else I was going to say, but we'll forget it at this point. That story about Texas Tech just got me off of whatever we were
just got you all frazzled.
No, it was, now I'm going back to that time, but that was, here we go. I have it for you. I agree with you. Those first 3 days of March Madness were some of my better days of the year. Monday regressed a little bit, but one of the reasons this has been a good tournament for me was just getting in on the Oregon State wave and backing them with the points pretty heavily each game, and then sprinkles on the money line. And I gave that out to a couple friends, and he was like telling me why his Oregon State money line didn't cash. I was like, what are you talking about? We got him like plus 310. And he's like, yeah, I went in and parlayed him with Texas. And I was like, you took a plus 310 money line winner and lost it on a minus 400 Texas. I was like, that is so cocky to lose, to add like he bets like $50. I'm like, you're trying to add like $8 to this winner by adding a first round upset. Do not do these things. Do not get.
Yeah, I don't understand. I was just using my coworker as an example last night, and he parlayed Celtics money line with Nuggets money line with two other giant favorites. And I asked him, I said, was that 4-teamer pay? And he goes, minus 190. And I was like, God, those things make my skin crawl. You know, the funny thing is I had Abilene Christian parlayed with Oregon State, parlayed with whoever UCLA beat. I think it was BYU. I think I had all three of those guys on the money line. And that was the last day I bet against UCLA. Oregon State, absolute money. UCLA, absolute money as an underdog. Abilene Christian died a slow death after the Texas game. But there were some really fun upsets. And yes, when you – look, I'm of the mantra of I never parlay favorites. I only parlay at least 2 dogs on the money line. And Utah State kind of killed me against Texas Tech. Maybe that's why I let Chris talk me to Texas Tech, because I was so mad that Utah State killed our 4-teamer, all 4 dogs on the money line, $300. Each of us threw in $50 in our group, $300 to win 13 grand. It was like a big team ticket. And that was where Utah State looked really good in the first half, crashed and burned in the second. But Wisconsin, easy. And Oregon State was on there. There was a couple of other really fun outright underdog winners that Friday. But yeah, I like when you parlay, I'm of the mantra of bet a little to win a lot, because at that point in time, you're going to get better odds. You know, these tickets we see all over the internet of like 12-teamers that pay, you know, all of this money. It's because most of them have pluses next to them. Very rarely are they a bunch of minus tickets. And I think that if people break down the math separately, you can go online, find a parlay calculator. You'll actually realize that those minus $4 favorites and above actually kill your odds just completely on your ticket.
Yep. All right, I got to get you out of here on this. I think I know what you're going to say. You don't need to bet anything, but I got to make you pick the game tonight. Who's going to win?
Who's going to win? I think the Zags are going to win. I think there's a big overreaction to the game against UCLA. I think UCLA should have never been 11 seed, and I think they were grossly undervalued this entire tournament. I think Baylor is going to give the Zags a really good game, but I think the Zags will pull away at the end, and I like the under 159.5.
There we go. I'm on the same page with you. Zags in a tight one, and hopefully once I wind up attempting to middle, that's what we get.
There you go. If Chris is going to have an aneurysm if Baylor doesn't win, so.
Oh, true. Forgot about that.
I told him, what night was that? Saturday night, I was texting him. I was like, there's 5s. They're going to be gone. There's 5s. And he was already in bed, and he woke up and everything was 4.5. And I was like, I told you needed to get the 5. And he was like, I was asleep. I go, that was piss poor planning on your part, buddy.
Whoops. Yeah, stay up late. Get good numbers, people. Sometimes it pays off. All right. Kelly Stewart, thank you for joining us on the Unreasonable Odds podcast. You can find her on Twitter once again at Kelly in Vegas. If you want to follow me, I'm at Julian Edlow if you guys don't already. And yeah, you can catch her work pretty much all over the place, doing it all out there in Vegas. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me.